I hope you're having an outstanding day. This is Heather. This is the Friday edition of the Back to Me podcast, which means, yes, I have another amazing super celebrity that I get to talk to. And Tatiana and I have talked briefly before, and I'm super excited to talk to you more, Tatiana, about all of this like gut, mind, health connection, because having gone through the medical system, they don't really understand anything about the gut. So I love that you're going to tell us all about this. So how are you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Heather. It is such a pleasure to be on your show. I feel like you're doing really good work here and inspiring so many people. But no, I'm doing really great. Super happy to be here.
That's amazing. And I remember when we first talked and you were telling me some of the gut health stuff, I was thinking, oh my gosh, for sure, 100% people are going to want to know about this. And I love the name of your book because
Hungry for Truth.
Hungry for Truth. I'm like, whoa, how did you even come up with that? Like, that's brilliant. It's brilliant. But first, let's go back a little bit. How did you get into this like world? How did you end up here?
I always loved health. Like ever since, I was in high school, I always wanted to be a doctor or a nurse. It switched up so many times. But it wasn't until I got into my first year of college that I realized I could major in nutrition. And I thought, this is for me. I knew it. I felt it so strongly calling me. And so then, I went to school and I didn't know I would be called a dietitian until I got to my program.
Oh, really?
I always thought I was going to be a nutritionist, right? And then I got to my program and realized, oh, I'm actually going to be the expert, right?
Oh,
because
cool.
anyone can call themselves a nutritionist.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I know what the difference is.
Yeah, so the difference is nutritionist is not a protected label. It's not a protected title, whereas dietitian is protected because you have to have your bachelor's, soon to be master's degree.
Wow.
You have to do clinical hours, so you have to be working in a hospital, community setting, do an administrative rotation. And then also you have to pass a board exam. So, just like doctors and nurses have to pass a board exam, so do dietitians. And so that kind of brings us to the point of, the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian is dietitians are just better qualified and they have way more knowledge than just reading a few books online and, recommending that.
Right. Yeah. Because I remember, so I'm in Ontario, so I'm up in Canada, and I did take a like nutrition wellness specialist course one time, which was a weekend. I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable telling people that I was a nutrition specialist. I was a personal trainer. I'm like, I could give you some ideas, but I would probably just refer you to somebody else with an expert, right? Like,
right. And
it's so involved.
Every body is so different too. I think a lot of people, they just go on these diets, whether it's, keto diet, carnivore diet, whatsoever. There's so many out there right now. And they just think it's for them. And in reality, every body is different. And so dietitians, I think, are the ones that realize, especially once you're practicing, that every body reacts differently to different foods. So you have to be very individualized when it comes to one human's nutrition.
Right.
Sure, we have guidelines for general healthful human nutrition, but when it comes to the individual, that individual might struggle with certain things that would change their nutritional needs. So for example, someone who is more stressed, more anxious, has trouble going to sleep, they actually might need more magnesium. Well, not might. They do need more magnesium.
Taking notes.
Everyone take their notes, and not to say like you just have to start supplementing.
No.
But what we need to pay attention to is, okay, well, now what foods are high in magnesium? And so depending on where a patient is at is what I will recommend specifically for their lifestyle. And now it becomes individualized nutrition, not just a diet.
Right. It's funny that you say that because I still practice as a massage therapist a couple times a week. And in where I am, you had to do the same thing. You have to pass board exams to become,
Uh-huh.
and it's 2 years of medical type schooling. And so we're allowed to call ourselves massage therapists. People who just do
Right.
massage aren't. But it's interesting because I'll have clients who say, oh, what do you think of this diet? Or what do you think of that diet? And I always come back with every human on the planet is an experiment of one, right? It's like, I
Right.
don't know if it'll work for you or not. And I'll experiment on myself. It's like I've done the keto, the paleo, and I'll come back and go, well, that didn't really work well for me, but you could try it, you know?
Right, right, absolutely, and for some people, it works really well, and for
Mhm.
others, yeah, it's their genes are not made to do keto or, another diet, so it really does come back down to the genes even, if your
And what about
genes are. Mhm.
the blood type diet got a lot of press not so long. You're like, oh, I see your
Yeah.
eyeballs going. That's
Well,
awesome,
I roll my eyes and sigh because I loved the blood type diet too.
right?
Before I went to school, I was like, I'm blood type A. I'm more like a vegetarian. I'm more gentle movement. But then in school, I learned that there's actually zero research to support their claims. And I
Sure.
thought, what a bummer, because I really liked that one diet.
I remember it was very anecdotal, right? When I was reading the
Yes.
book, it was just, this is what I've observed, but no testing. Now, that doesn't mean that that wouldn't work for that person, because you can find all of them where it'll work for some people and not others, right?
Right. Right.
And then, but I think also, and this goes to your gut health thing. s- do you find that, I mean, the way our diet is, don't even get me started, but because I'm guilty of it myself, but um, even your, like, go to the basics of your gut health will affect whether a diet works or not. Would I
Yeah.
say that?
Well, our diet impacts the microbiome individually. So what we're finding, I guess, yes, in the standard American diet, which in my book I call sad
Oh
nutrition,
no.
is very highly processed. It's low fiber, so we need fiber to feed the microbes. And so basically, the diet that most people are on is starving our bacteria, which then impact a lot of issues in the human body. Because when our microbes are happy, our overall body functions much better. So, yes, absolutely, our diet impacts our gut health.
And I I just had a little, what? Fiber feeds the microbiome? I thought fiber just made everything work harder. Like you needed bulk or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about fiber, and, in my book, Hungry for Truth, there's a chapter called, because the chapter names are lies. Lies we have been told, lies that we believe. And one of the lies is carbs are bad, right? We hear all the
Right.
time carbohydrates make you fat, carbohydrates, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, fiber is a carb, and fiber is found in all of our plant foods, vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, seeds, whole grains. Like these are all plant foods and they all contain fiber. And fiber, the human body doesn't have an enzyme to break it down, right? So that's why it helps us go to the bathroom, because
Right.
it literally goes straight through us, because we don't absorb fiber. We
Right.
don't have enzymes to cut it up and absorb it. So it kind of just goes straight through us. But what's interesting, and which is what they're finding more recently in the research, is that something does happen. Fiber doesn't just enter and leave. The bacteria, the good ones, are actually fermenting it and creating all of these beautiful molecules to support human health. But we don't get those benefits if we're not eating fiber and adequately feeding these bacteria.
Right. Oh my gosh. Like, okay, already my mind is blowing. So,
Yeah.
which is good. I love the fact that each of your chapters is a lie, because, it used to be like, first, fat was bad. We have to cut fat out of everything. Then we're like, shoot, we actually need fat. Okay, no, it's the carbs. Carbs are bad. What's going to be next? I don't know.
Right. And well, right now there's a big protein debate, right? So we've gone through all of the macronutrients and now it's protein. And I was just on a podcast the other day, and I mean, this guy was very big on protein, protein, protein. However, I'm kind of still in the middle with that argument. I think some people, yes, need more protein, which is both chapters in that book, whereas other people need a little bit less protein if we're talking about longevity. So I kind of stand in the middle ground
And
with
I
protein.
think it's good to stand in the middle, because I think polarizing, picking like you have to do keto and eat no carbs. Like I had a
Mhm,
friend who did it, who said, yeah, he got super lean, but he was starving all the time.
mhm,
Right. And, it's
mhm.
like everything in extremes. The body likes homeostasis, right? And we keep doing these extremes of things. And I
Right.
don't know that that's necessarily our best path. And I don't know how we
Mhm.
can know for sure except to try.
Right, to be individualized and try it, and understanding what the intention is, right? So if a patient, yes, has been struggling with their weight, they have tried everything, then to try ketogenic diet, sure, there's a good intention there to push their body into ketosis so they can finally lose fat. Okay, absolutely. I have patients like that. But if it's just to lose 5 pounds or, something silly like that to look good on the beach, to have abs, the intention is kind of weak. So I
Right.
think as long as our intention is strong, we will have success in nutrition.
And none of those are really long-term solutions,
Right.
which is why they don't last, right? I mean, how
Exactly.
long can you actually eat like that unless you live somewhere where you can't get anything but live game or something, right?
Absolutely. Which is what the human diet used to be. The
Mhm.
human diet used to be wherever you resided, that was your diet. So that's why some people do well with animal products because that's probably what their ancestors ate versus, some of the more Asian cultures had a lot of rice and vegetables, or maybe if someone resided their ancestors resided near the ocean, they were eating a lot of seafood, right?
Right.
And so their bodies are probably going to do much better with those foods. So if you know where your ancestry comes from, it's probably a good idea to look into what they were eating because most likely you'll do really well on those foods too.
And don't just go back like to, your grandparents' generation. Like I think you should have to go back, because if I go back, because I'm from half Scottish, half British, it's like,
Mhm.
so steak and kidney pies. No, that's not that's not back far enough.
Right. Yeah. You want to go back to maybe, yeah, before we had all the processed foods, before
Right.
agriculture was a thing, of what we took from the land, right? Because now it's just convenient. We have food in our fridge, we have food in our pantry. I can put, click of a button and have food delivered to my
Oh my
house.
gosh, right? Soon it'll come
And
by drone.
right. Oh, I can't wait for that, by the way.
That's awesome.
But it's so easy now. But the thing is, human beings used to hunt their food. We used to gather our food from the land we lived on. And it was a beautiful, cycle of, yes, these animals grow and we eat them. The plants grow and we eat them. And then we give back to the earth.
Then
Whereas
they eat
nowadays,
us.
right, exactly. And it's like we don't get that anymore. We don't have that cycle and connection to the earth anymore. And I think when people grow gardens, it's so beautiful because at least they're in touch with the food that they're growing.
Right, yeah. It would be amazing if everybody could just have a little. I've seen, where they show how much you can grow on one little square, like in the city
Um,
kind of yard, right? So good. If everybody did that, just imagine
right.
how
Right.
healthy
And
we could all be.
exactly. And it takes work and, it takes time. So, we have to meet each person where they're at, right? So I have a couple patients that are in college, right? I don't expect them to grow a garden, but if they can get frozen vegetables,
Right.
put in the freezer, great. Beautiful. Like that's one step that we're improving your diet.
Yeah. It's balancing. Goes back to because I'm the yogi, right? It's like just something here to get us a little more balance, a little more back into the center, baby steps, because big
Mhm.
steps usually fall down, right? If you try to
Right.
take too big a step.
Right.
And I know that. And gut health, did I read something not so long ago about it even affects, like it affects so many things, like even your brain, because
Mhm.
that's where the energy for your brain comes from. It's not just a straight, I don't know
Right.
how to
And we
describe
could,
it.
yeah, I can go ahead and go into the science behind
Yeah,
that.
I love that.
So, yeah, so our microbes are so cool. I love talking about the microbiome so much. But I always tell patients, you're not eating for one, you're eating for 100 trillion. You're eating
Okay.
for a ton of
But that
people.
doesn't
You're not
mean to eat 100 trillion calories.
right. It's more so you have to be eating the right things. So going back to the fiber, when we eat fiber, we don't digest it, but the good bacteria do. And what these bacteria make are wonderful molecules, two of which are necessary for brain peace, and that's GABA and
Oh, yes.
serotonin. So serotonin is this, happy, peaceful neurotransmitter. And 95% of our serotonin supplies come from the microbes. So
Wow.
if we don't have a happy microbiome, absolutely you will not be as happy as someone who does have a happy microbiome. So it's really important to be feeding these guys the fiber because then they create the serotonin, they create the GABA, which helps us stay calm and peaceful. And with that, it's easier to live life and enjoy life and actually make better eating behavior changes when you have those neurotransmitters on your side.
Right. You make better decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait till you're hungry to go to the grocery store, because then you're
Right.
going to eat the nacho chips.
Mm-hmm.
I have two thoughts that popped into my head. So it's like the type of fiber, because I've heard soluble, non-soluble, but also what do you think of like I've seen it on the shelves in the health food store, GABA supplements. I'm like, I know about the blood-brain barrier. I don't know if that would ever get to where it's supposed to go.
Right. Right. So going back to the types of fiber, yes, we
Mhm.
have our soluble and non-soluble. You can always think of non-soluble as the type of fiber that will go straight through you. So that's anything with a peel, apple peel, cucumber peel. Those ones will all go straight through you. Those actually have been shown so far to not be fermented by the bacteria.
Hmm.
Whereas soluble fiber, this is fiber that can be gelatinized with water. Think of chia seeds when you
Right.
think soluble, right? Put chia seeds in a glass of water, it becomes like gelatinized.
Yeah.
And this is what this is also called prebiotic fiber, that the bacteria will eat and ferment and then create all these beautiful, GABA, serotonin. Now, to go to your point about the GABA supplement, I have seen that too. And I personally would never take that because I know, why wouldn't I just eat some fiber instead?
They're not going to tell you that at the health food store.
Right. Of course not. Of course not. And what's so strange is my husband and I, we have a running joke that we're ogres because we love onions, right? And I used to hate onions when I was a kid. And then, I started eating them as an adult, but now I crave it. And you know why? It's
No.
because the bacteria, it's a prebiotic fiber. So those bacteria are feeding on it. So I feel really good when I eat onions. And so
Oh.
now there's that connection of I want to keep eating onions because I always feel really good because it's feeding the microbes.
So that's so interesting, because like on IBS in the FODMAPs, they tell you not to eat onions. So
Yes.
it's on onions, garlic. So, and for people who don't know what FODMAPs is, I don't even know what it stands for. I'm sure
Yeah.
you do.
So it's fermentable oligosaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So
I knew you would know.
yes, actually, I think I forgot the disaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. And yes, you're absolutely right, Heather, for IBS. Usually those foods bother people, but we have to think, who are the patients with IBS? They're the ones with already compromised guts. Their microbiome is already probably not very happy. And so
Right.
with IBS patients, we just have to take a little bit of a detour with those fiber foods. We
To
first have
get
to
them around to the.
exactly. At first, yes, we might have to do a low FODMAP diet, but low FODMAP diet is not meant to be longer than 8 weeks.
Oh,
Maybe
really?
maybe a few months if a patient is really struggling. But a lot of patients come to me and they're on it for years. And I know a lot of people are, on it for years. And it scares me because all of those those foods that are FODMAPs are actually prebiotic fiber. So those are the fibers that are feeding our good bacteria. So we have to be very careful with low FODMAP diet. It is wonderful. It does support symptom relief. It's very good. It's very highly researched. I recommend it all the time, but there is a protocol with it.
Well, and it's interesting. So I'll fully admit I developed IBS probably 5 or more years ago. And it took me to go, my symptom reduction, I had to go off onions and garlic for 6 months. And maybe it was sooner, but I was afraid to eat them. So, but nobody said it's only 8 weeks. So I was just like, my doctor just said, here's a list of foods not to eat. And they were the most random foods. So onions, garlic, apples, cashews. I'm like, how are these even related?
Right. And they're not. That's the thing about the FODMAP diet. It's not there's 6 different FODMAPs within that title. You know, and so I always recommend my patients just get the Monash University app. Because it's the best resource right now, and it has all the foods. It tells you how much of each food you can have without it becoming bothersome.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yes, it's like $8 or $12 in the App Store, but it is so worth it. And it tells you which FODMAP group it is. So, you know, for FODMAP diet, yes, 6-8 weeks, hopefully not longer. But then there's also phase 2. And phase 2 is when we start reintroducing one group at a time. So we might introduce the oligosaccharides first, which is like our beans. We might lentils, we might add those first, see how the gut does. And if it's great, it most likely will tolerate all of the GOSs. But then we might come across lactose next, right? That's another FODMAP group. And let's say we try a little bit of yogurt, patient's okay, but then all of a sudden they try milk. Oh, belly bloating, diarrhea. Okay, we know that there's a little bit of lactose intolerance there. We might need to always be mindful of lactose and so on. And so we find out which FODMAP group is actually the one that the patient is intolerant to, and not just assume that they're intolerant to all of the FODMAPs.
People need your help because, it's like trying to navigate the subway systems in China or somewhere. You don't speak the language. The maps are confusing. It's just like, I need someone to help me through all of this, because literally, like, I was handed a list and said, here, just don't eat these.
I know. It's a problem. I kind of get mad at doctors for doing that. I get mad at doctors for a lot of things, but telling a patient, okay, go lose weight. And it's like, you have no idea what their mental health status is. You could have just triggered them to binge eat all week, and then,
and you don't tell them how to start. Like, if someone said to you, go lose weight, or, someone said to you, just go do something that's not even in your wheelhouse, anything that you've thought about, you don't have the background to go, oh, so I'll just alter this in my eating habits. Like, that's so unfair to people, because they need resources. They don't know what they don't know. Like, they don't know how to start.
And that's also the doctors, they might not even know how the patient starts. And also, to give doctors a break, they don't have the time to sit with the client or patient and really go through their history. That's the privilege that I have to do, where I get to sit with my patients for an hour and understand their whole life before I recommend anything. I want to know their lifestyle. I want to know if they're working. I want to know everything that I can about them that they're willing to share before I recommend a single thing. Because guess what? If they will not negotiate with their coffee, getting rid of that, I'm not going to start there by telling them to eliminate their coffee,
There's people I know who would kill you if you tried to eliminate coffee.
Trust me, I have them in the exam room when we're doing our consults. I've had plenty of them, and I say, I know, I'm going to be gentle here.
And we were talking baby steps. It does you want to set people up for success, right? The whole goal of, I know I'm speaking for myself, but the whole goal of everything that I do, because I do so many different things that are trying to help people be well, and whatever their definition of well is, it's like, we don't want to say, go do this if it's not something you don't want. And it's like not currently accessible to you, right? It's
Right.
like you're trying to be their partner to help them get to where they're going, really.
Absolutely. And yeah, sometimes handing a patient in the doctor's office just a list of foods and say, avoid these, eat these, not very effective, in my opinion. I think at that point we need to be sitting down with an expert and, yeah, having a dietitian actually spend the time to educate the patient and say, hey, this isn't forever. This is short term. This is just to get your symptoms under control. And then from there, we can see, okay, yeah, is it lactose? Is it fructans? Is it the GOSs that's bothering you? And guess what? If we can pinpoint that, if we can successfully find it's this FODMAP group, there's most likely a digestive enzyme specifically for that FODMAP. So you can start eating those foods all over again and enjoy them
What?
without the symptoms. Yes. There's digestive enzymes for a lot of things. And because remember, it's, either we're missing the enzyme, or yes, our bacteria are just very unhappy. But for lactose, for instance, a lot of people are just intolerant, because they
Right.
don't have the enzyme. But if we add in an enzyme, most people tend to tolerate
I
dairy
guess
products just fine.
that's a very common one, right? I actually do know people who put something in their milk so they can drink it.
Yeah.
Me, I'm allergic to whey protein. So
Different story.
totally
Mhm.
different story. So I just avoid it entirely. My life hasn't been ruined because I can't eat cheese, friends. Right?
Right. Right.
People think I couldn't possibly. I'm like, no, actually, I'm pretty good. Pretty
Yeah.
good. There's so many options to dairy these days.
Exactly.
The app, did you say it's Monash University?
Yeah. Monash
Monash.
University.
Okay.
I want to say they're out of New Zealand or Australia, somewhere
Cool.
over there. Yeah, they're doing
That
a
just
lot of good
automatically
research.
makes them cooler, right?
Yes, yes. No, but they're so great. And I love that app because it actually tells you, how much of a FODMAP food you can have. That way you're not completely eliminating those foods completely. You can just
Right.
have a little bit here and there, and
Well, and I
still
know,
enjoy the foods you like.
and I know, I mean, this my personal, but I'm assuming probably a lot of people who have digestive issues. I felt like I was playing food roulette half the time. Like, if I eat this, what will happen? Ooh, rolling the dice, rolling the dice.
Yeah, and just to go to IBS basics, like IBS 101, there are two triggers, major triggers. One is diet, yes. And I would say it's more so, a processed diet, processed foods, that tends to be the bigger triggers. But then the second one is stress, right?
Oh,
And a lot of people like to blame the food instead of their stressed state. And so, a lot of the time when we actually manage stress in the process of making dietary changes, symptoms seem to be improved. And so, if we can
oh.
take care of both of those components, IBS tends to resolve very quickly.
And interestingly, the last 2 years, I'm sure there's been, for some people, a massive stress reaction to things, right?
Right.
I mean, everything has been disrupted. Everything.
Mhm.
And not that the world is ever not chaotic, but it's just not so everything chaotic all at once. So, yes, managing stress. Everybody should be taking yoga and doing meditation. No, I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
Do whatever works best for you.
And even it could be as simple as breathing before your meals. I think the biggest problem that I see, in my clinical experience with GI patients is they are afraid to eat. Right. So now
Mm,
there's anxiety going into the meal. And guess what happens when we're anxious or stressed? Fight or flight response, right? The sympathetic nervous system turns on. And what turns off? The digestive system, because the
right.
brain is saying you have to run, but we don't have those type of stressors anymore where we're running away from
We're
bears
like
and
running away
lions.
from going out to eat. I can remember being in
Yeah.
a restaurant and going, oh, I don't know if I should eat anything, right? It's like that is
Right.
stressful when you're out socially and you don't know what's going to happen when you eat.
Right. And so we need to take a second, and that's when we can just check in with ourselves, get into that intuitive state. And yeah, maybe sometimes it is, I'm just going to have water because I'm not too sure about this menu. But then other times you can ask yourself, I'm going to be able to tolerate this, right? And have a more brave perspective on the
Right.
meal, and diminishing the anxiety to the best of our ability by allowing it to be there, breathing it away. Because the thing is, when you accept the anxiety and allow it to be there, it tends to go away,
Right.
especially around food. And also, I think just going back to, weekly check-ins with yourself of, you know, how is the anxiety around food? How is the fear around food? Because a lot of patients with digestive issues start to develop a fear of food. And that's very dangerous, especially from a dietitian perspective, because food is what nourishes us. That's what keeps the human body functioning well.
Right.
And if we're going to start restricting because we're fearful, that is problematic. And at that point, I mean, we're dipping into eating disorder territory. So we have to be very careful with the fear associated with food when we have digestive illnesses.
Right. And I guess if you start restricting really heavily any particular food group, you're missing those particular nutrients. And I guess that's going to affect the whole system,
Mhm.
not just those nutrients, but it's kind of the cascade effect. And then
Absolutely.
the microbiome. So if they have been, uh, you know, I feel like they've been at war, the poor things, like they've been attacked and they need support and love. How do you address, like, not only supporting them, but kind of augment, like helping them grow? I assume they grow back. Do they grow back?
Yeah, the
Okay.
bacteria, yes. I mean,
Goodness.
the beauty about the microbiome, it shifts throughout the day, it shifts throughout the
Oh,
year
wow.
when you eat different foods. So if I were to go and eat like a burger right now, my microbiome would shift, versus if I ate a salad, my microbiome would shift a different way. So when we're trying to make changes for gut health, it's really, we have to be consistent with it, because that's what's going to sustain the microbes. Because it can go, I mean, you could be on a high fiber diet for 4 weeks, maybe see some improvement, but over time, if you go back to your other diet, it'll shift back to what it was.
Right. Wow. I didn't realize it fluctuated so much.
It's very cool. Everything is on a circadian rhythm, right?
Oh,
We are in a sleep and wake cycle.
yeah.
Our digestive system is also on a cycle. Our microbes are on a cycle.
So
And I
then is
think
there a time of day people should eat?
right during the daytime is when people should eat, when it's daylight, not when it's dark. So they
Oh,
have done studies about that. Yeah, absolutely, after it gets dark outside, we should stop eating. And that goes back to human evolution. When we were outside, we didn't have houses, and we would
right.
go sleep in the caves after dark and hid from predators, because we weren't going to get a snack with the coyotes.
I just got to head down to the fridge, right?
Right. So I would say that's probably the worst thing that I see is late night eating. If we can change that one thing, m- gut health will improve, weight will improve. Honestly, sleep will be better, because now there's nothing in the digestive system that, your body has to focus on. It could just focus on sleeping and resting and cleaning out your brain,
Wow,
basically.
that's so cool. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Because I'm terrible. I eat my dinner late. I have to change what do you think of intermittent fasting?
I'm very big supporter of intermittent fasting. Again, it's giving your microbes a break. So if we're
Oh,
talking about gut health, particularly, when there's no food in the gut, certain microbes come out and they do things. But when we're eating all the time,
dance party.
dance party, yeah. If you're feeling happy all the time, they're definitely having a dance party down there. But yeah, so when we eat, when we don't eat, different things happen. And when it comes to intermittent fasting, I would say the biggest thing is we're reducing insulin, especially for someone who wants to prevent diabetes, wants to lose weight or maintain a weight. Fasting is really the only thing in the science that I believe is lifelong. Like, you could always do a 12-hour overnight fast. You can always do a 13-hour overnight fast. Some people need to go a little bit higher, but that's where you work with a dietitian or another healthcare professional that's familiar with fasting to put you on a good regimen. Now, the
Right.
issue is intermittent fasting is a fad diet. as well, but it's
I
probably
know.
it's one of the most natural fad diets that has come out, right? Because human beings have always gone through periods of fasting and famine, or sorry, fasting and feast.
Right.
And in every religion, there is a fasting protocol or some type of fasting ritual, right? So there's something about fasting that humans connect with. And I think it's the other half, right, of life, which is eating. We need nourishment, but then also we need periods without food because a
Right.
lot of other things happen during that other time. So I think if we can at least get to a 12-hour eating window, 12-hour overnight fast, wonderful. That is the goal for all of my patients if they are eating a prolonged eating window. And then from there, if their goals are to lose weight or yes, we have a lot of gut work to do, then we'll prolong the overnight fast.
There was a book written called The Obesity Code. Have you read that one?
Yes, I love that one. That was one of the first ones I read.
He's Canadian. Did you know that?
Yes, Dr. Jason Fung.
Yes.
Yes.
Just doing a little shout out for my little Canadian friends.
Love it.
I actually read it and thought it was so interesting that he just went and looked at all of the research, right? And just said, this is what I've seen. Do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because when you go to try to find information on intermittent fasting, it's like, oh, you should fast for 16 hours. You should have fast for 14 hours. And like,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't know me. How do you know that I'm not going to get cranky and hurt someone?
Right.
The hangry is real.
You have to be careful. And yeah, what works for some people doesn't work for all. And especially when it comes to fasting, and you want to ease into it, especially as a woman. We have to be very careful with our hormones. I would say my male clients, like, I'm just like, go to 18 hours, you'll be fine. Just the first 10 days will be hard. Your body's shifting. It's becoming more metabolically flexible. It's basically like we're training your body to burn fat again.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, my male patients tend to jump into it. I'm okay with them jumping into it. Whereas my female patients, I'm like, let's take it easy.
Right.
Let's be gentle.
Yes. You don't want to like trigger some weird mood things happening. And like, cause I mean, it is a true thing. Like if I get hungry, I might get a little bit cranky, and that's not how I want to be. And is that because my microbiomes are cranky, or just my brain is like, feed me, feed me?
It could. I think it's more so the dependence on external energy, right? Because this is very common in our today's society because we have access to food all the time. Our bodies are so used to only use external energy, which is food. Our bodies kind of forget over time how to burn stored energy, which is our glycogen and our fat, right? Both of those are storage
Right.
units for energy, and a lot of energy comes from there. But over time, the body says, I don't want to burn that. That's too much work. Can you eat something? I will make you really crabby so you can eat.
Right.
I'll make you hangry.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's just being lazy.
It's more so you have to train your body to become metabolically flexible.
And that's why you for women, you ease them into it.
Correct. That way it's
Right.
not as abrupt, although you could go abruptly and be hangry for 10 days, 14 days. You could do that, but we like to be gentle with the body, and especially for someone who has gut issues, most likely there's stress. A lot of my patients with gut issues, I'd say 90% of them have stress. And so for us to do fasting and like a prolonged fast and stress, not good for the gut. So we have to ease into it very gently, not to stress anybody out.
Right. I can remember when the master cleanse was a thing going on for a while. And yeah, I don't remember even how I found out about it. But maybe because I've been in the industry a long time, it's like you hear, oh, try this cleanse. Oh, do this cleanse. Oh, do this cleanse. And you try them, and then you think, well, I don't know if that actually did anything. So I think if you just stop eating, maybe that's the best, right?
Right, exactly. I know when patients ask me, oh, should I do a detox? I'm like, yeah, fast. That's the detox. Don't eat anything.
You don't have
And
to
people are like,
supplement.
what? Yeah, they're like, no, you don't. I don't have to do a juice fast. I'm like, nope, you just don't eat anything.
That's so simple, but you can't sell it, my friend. You And so
Well,
just
I
don't
I
eat.
like to tell right, exactly. I like to tell patients the thing about fasting that makes it very enticing is it doesn't cost anything. So big pharma is going to be against it. We know that because guess what? A lot of things that fasting can do can reverse people's diseases and actually get them off their medication. So I assume big pharma doesn't want people to know how effective fasting is. The food industry definitely doesn't want people fasting because now they lose money. But
Right.
the craziest thing is, yeah, fasting is free. It doesn't cost you anything. If anything, it saves you money and time.
I've been intermittent fasting for actually since October 2019, just before
Nice.
COVID started, because I read that book, the Obesity Code. I read it, and Dr. Fung convinced me. I'm like, okay, doctor, I'm ready to try this. There are days that it's challenging, though, right? There's days, and it's probably stress related, 100%.
Mhm.
When you feel that, like, I need to just eat something to make it's like a comfort thing as well, right? I'm sure.
Right.
And
Right. And I
then,
think it's differentiating between hunger versus emotional eating. And I think, we have to find the difference between the two because then if we're emotionally eating all the time, now we're using food as like it's an abusive relationship. So
right.
I think it's really important to bring awareness to that because I mean, you're not alone. A lot of people feel that way. But I mean, at the same time, yes, I've been fasting for a very long time too. But there are days where I want to break my fast early because I feel, you know, my hormones, I don't know what it is. I haven't pinpointed exactly what it is, but there are days where I know I need to break my fast a little earlier. However, there are days when I'm so busy, I will fast all day and finish and do one meal a day because when you're in the fasted state, you are burning, ketone bodies. And so you'll soon enter into light nutritional ketosis and the brain really likes ketone bodies. So for me
Oh,
personally, I have a very strong mental clarity and so it would be more beneficial for my work to stay fasted. And also once you're used to it, once your body knows how to burn fat, it knows how to burn fat. And so it could keep going and going and going and give you this long lasting energy. And then of course, like we can't forget, like in this whole talk about fasting, nourishment is still that other half. So
right.
even when we're fasting, we still have to make sure we're nourishing our bodies adequately. I mean, sure, like you can eat whatever you want, but we still want to make sure there's vitamins, minerals, good calories from those foods to support our body's needs.
There's the eat whatever you want, but make sure that you eat still well. I mean, I've known people who say, I'm a vegetarian because it's healthier, but they had the most unhealthy diet I had ever seen. I'm like,
Yes.
being
Yeah.
vegetarian does not necessarily make you healthy.
Absolutely. And that's one of my chapters in my book is about that, about the whole vegan and vegetarianism. And I think it's almost an identity at this point. I'm vegan, right?
Yeah.
And everybody has to respect you in a way, so, but yeah.
It's like, why did you choose? So for my vegan friends, I still love you, but I disagree with veganism because, I mean, we were talking about evolution. We did not evolve to not consume, and it's evidenced by the fact that you can't be a vegan without supplementation, right? So
Absolutely.
if I
Mhm.
have to supplement, like, I understand that our food system has altered and that we can't always get all the nutrients we need, but if you absolutely 100% have to supplement because of the way you eat, then there's something wrong.
Right. It's not natural at this
Mhm.
point.
Mhm.
Again, it goes back to our easy culture. We don't have to go hunt and find our food anymore. We can go buy it at Whole Foods or Sprouts and we can buy a vegan version. So if anything, veganism is just another diet that's just easy because of our current society. It's
Like when
not
gluten-free was a thing. It's like, "Oh my
right.
god, everybody's going gluten-free." I did it, I admit it. I did it.
Yeah. I'm currently still watching my gluten intake just because in the US, the way that we're raising gluten is very inflammatory. They're mixing strains of gluten and yeah, it can be very bothersome for a lot of guts out there. So, gluten-free diet, there's an absolute place for it.
Totally. But it's not an identity. Is your gut able to process it or not? It's not just because it's cool. Do you ever watch oh my God, who's that yogi? He does these like parodies, and he makes fun of trends. And I think he's a yogi. Well, he dresses like a yogi, but he made fun of the gluten-free trend at one point. It was actually very entertaining, and I can't remember his name.
Is it the guy that has the red hair?
Yes.
Oh, he's so funny. Yeah, I love
I
him.
know. I can't remember his name.
I don't know
Sorry,
his
I
name.
don't remember your name. I'll put it in the show notes later.
Yeah, no, I love all of his dietary ones that are just making fun of things.
Right?
It's
He's
good.
just trying to make a point. It's like,
Right.
are you doing it for your health, or are you doing it because it's cool and trendy?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so
So
that's why we always have to come back down to the intention with eating behavior changes. So if we're going to be trying a different diet, we need to go back to the intention of, okay, am I trying to heal my gut? Yeah. Okay. So that's more, your brain is going to respond better when there's a stronger intention, right? If it's, oh, I want to heal my body, you're more likely to even stick with it versus, I just want to go gluten-free. I'm going to get this gluten-free bread. It's not going to do anything if there's no intention there.
and probably the first time you eat it, you're going to go, oh, this is great. Although they're doing much better, but let's be serious. Gluten is delicious.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I love it.
Right.
Definitely.
And something else I just had pop into my head. I can't remember what it was because it left out the side door.
It happens.
It totally happens. But and I guess there's no like, because everybody's an experiment of one, it's not like everybody should do. It's what would make you feel the best. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. It's like my reason for, eating XYZ diet is because I want a yogi butt is not a strong enough reason for me to keep doing it on a long-term basis. And a lot of those diets are not maintainable, really,
Absolutely.
consistently.
Yep.
Because something
So right.
somehow is usually missing, even if it's just an emotional thing, right?
Well, that's exactly what's missing is the emotional component because motivation to make change starts with emotion. I forgot who coined this idea, but there's the elephant and the rider, right? Have you heard that analogy, the
I don't think
elephant
so.
and the rider? Very cool. This is really important for someone who has difficulty making behavior changes, whether it's exercising, whether it's making a dietary change. So the elephant is the emotional piece of us that we are driven by emotion. And then our rider, who is, riding the elephant around, that's our logic. We need to know exactly what to do in order to do it. But the thing is if the rider is, in control and I know exactly what to do, we need to do that, but there's no emotion, the elephant's not going to move or might move temporarily, but then it's going to stop. Versus the opposite, where we have a lot of emotion, but we have no clear direction. The elephant might be moving, but the rider is lost. So it doesn't know which way to go. So we need both the logical and the emotional piece to really drive behavior change and to have success.
That's very cool. I had visions of the elephant just stampeding all over the place. And the rider is like, I don't know where I'm going.
Right. And I think that's why it's important to, work with a health coach, work with a dietitian, work with someone you trust and, align with, because they're going to help you get your rider under control, help you pinpoint what gets your elephant going. And once we have those two components over time, over months, it becomes easy. And over time, you're not going to need a health coach. Over time, you're not going to need a dietitians or doctors because you know your individualized diet. And it changes over the years. As we get older, we need different nutrition. We have different nutritional needs. But if you do the work now, invest the time now, in a year or two, it's going to be second nature for you. And you're going to be on your diet, your
Right.
individualized diet.
That's super cool. And I know I want to make sure we talk about we've mentioned your book, but I want it because you have a special surprise for people.
Yes, I do. So for Hungry for Truth, because it's still new and because I really appreciate Heather and her podcast and what she's doing here, and all of you listeners. We are going to give you guys the first chapter for free. So you can go ahead and read it, see if you like it, see if you like my writing, if you align with it, and then you can get a little taste of what I have to say.
And I remember you saying that the first chapter gives them so much information already. Right?
Oh, well, it's the first little, click of, oh, it's not your fault that eating is hard. Eating healthy is hard. There's all these people that are in the way to your success. And so first off the get-go, we have to address the shame, that comes with eating poorly. The thing is, like, sometimes I still even experience it, although I've gotten better of, oh, I'm eating cookies. Like, this isn't helping my body, right?
Right.
But then in the end, like, we still have to take care of that shame and know this has a place. It
Right.
fits. I'm going to enjoy this now. But at the same time, still respecting and honoring our body to make changes that are for our benefit. And so, yeah, that chapter goes through everything you need to know to realize it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility.
Which is a big differentiation. Like, it's
Absolutely.
huge. That's
Yes.
amazing. And I always give people do you have any final words of wisdom? Like something you just want people to know?
Yes. I would say overall, sleep is more important than nutrition. So
Whoa.
please sleep. Yes, please sleep, because it's going to impact your emotional levels the next day. It's going to impact your ability to manage stress. So I hate to say it, but sleep is more important than nutrition. And also, if I could give one more little
Yeah,
tip
totally.
or activity, is to do a weekly check-in and reflection with yourself. That way you're always keeping up with, okay, hey, I'm doing pretty good here, or I'm still struggling with eating XYZ, or oh, I'm still struggling with sleep. Just because when you're actually checking in with yourself, you're more likely to make progress versus if you just ignore everything and you're just trying to eat healthier and you're just reaching for things, you're not going to be as successful. So if you can just take 20 minutes once a week to just even brain dump of where you're at on your health journey, you will see the difference over a year. If you did it every week for a year, you will not even recognize who you are anymore.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
very cool. And that's not a lot to ask, right?
Again, we have to keep it simple. We have to keep it
Yeah.
simple, small baby steps, because then the brain is more likely to do it. If I said, Heather, I just need you to do 1 push-up per day,
I can do it.
you could do it. Right. It's not like I'm asking you to do 50 push-ups or,
Right.
run 10 miles. We start really slow. So the brain says, I can do that. And then from there, we slowly increase the goal.
Right.
So if we can just start with even a 5-minute brain dump once a week, just to see where we're at, that's going to do so much than 0 minutes. And then over time, yeah, if you can get up to 20 minutes soon, and you'll be like me, where I'm like, I love reflecting. So I'm reflecting for hours, each week. And it's so beautiful, because then you get to see your human transformation and you get to reconnect with yourself. I think a lot of people are missing that, which is why, I appreciate what you're doing, and also like yogis and meditation. Like, it's that opportunity to reconnect with who you are, forget the food, forget the external world, but coming back to who you are. We really can't do that unless we're actually taking the time and creating sacred space for ourselves to bloom.
That's so awesome. I don't even want to add anything after that. That's so good.
All right. Well, I hope everybody appreciated, our little gut health talk.
It could go to so many places, right? I know how much knowledge you have, and it could just go on and on. So my friends, check out the book for sure. I am going to, and definitely how to contact Tatiana is going to be in the notes everywhere. And you can totally connect with her to ask more questions, because I know I didn't get all the questions. And thank you so much for coming and spending some time with me. I appreciate that so much. Time
You're
is
so
precious.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
And it has been honestly such a fun hour. Like I said, I love talking about these subjects. I love it, and that's why I love what I do as a dietitian. It's so beautiful, and it's even better to watch people transform.
Right. Oh my gosh. So good. Wow. There you go, my friends. So you all take care of you. And if you need some help, you know where to go. Oh, this side. All right. Thanks so much.